Civil rights activist and prominent leader in the African-American struggle for equality, Rev Jesse Jackson remains one of the most influential figures in the global fight against racial injustice. From working alongside Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. during the United States civil rights movement to championing economic justice and political empowerment for Black communities, Jackson's activism has had a lasting impact far beyond the United States. So his advocacy also resonated across the African diaspora, including in South Africa during the anti-apartheid struggle, where international solidarity helped strengthen the fight for freedom and equality. Let's chat a bit about this now on Rev Jesse Jackson's role in advancing civil rights and his broader influence on struggles for justice across the African diaspora. We're joined by advocate Sipho Mantula, a researcher at the Thabo Mbeki African School of Public and International Relations. Thank you so much for joining us. We really do appreciate your time. I mean, such a towering figure, and been very fortunate to meet him several times when he was in South Africa, but such a towering figure for someone who fought for the racial injustices, not just in his country, but if we talk about, in the African diaspora, how respected he was and the role that he played to ensure that those that were marginalized had a voice, if I may.
Nkosi, my sister, thank you, and good morning to your viewers. Indeed, Sister Griselda, when you look at the son of the soil, he was not only an American, he was an African son of the soil. As Africa mourns him, and as the world celebrates him, what is important is to navigate, trace his role that he has played in this continent. And you will look back, if you look back, before the 1984, his presidential campaign, what was important was his first visit to South Africa in 1979, just after the assassination of Bantu Biko in 1977.
Yeah.
And also his linkage and visiting Winnie Nomzamo Madikizela Mandela. His connection also with the African liberation struggles and also the Black townships from the crossroads of Western Cape to Soweto to Sharpeville, everywhere, Sister Griselda. So if you look at his, what I'll call initiation, his genesis of tying the civil rights movement struggle with his foreign policy in 1984. So in 1984, when he was campaigning to become a president in the US, he used the foreign policy mantra of liberating Africa and connecting what others will call those ties that binds Africa and the African diaspora. Coming from South Carolina, being young, he was also experiencing racism and what you can call segregation at a very young age.
Yeah.
And looking back at his contribution beyond South Africa, and when he came in 1990 also, a second visit when Nelson Mandela was released and other liberation movements, that was also another connection. You will see that his connection from the release of Mandela, as he has already prophesied that in 1994, this land will be in a changing hands. It will be in the new administration. That's how you will see his impact. I've also seen his impact when the former President Clinton appointed him as a special envoy to look at the African continent, particularly the SADC region also, Zimbabwe, Tanzania, Zambia. He went also in West Africa, the Gambia. So for us to celebrate him, Sister Griselda, with the viewers, it is also his impact of what we'll call a liberation theology of Black consciousness, to understand that the plight of a Black man was not confined to the US only, but it was globally. And that's how we can commemorate and celebrate him.
And very important at the time was to help internationalize, if I can, the struggle of Black people in South Africa. I mean, this activism certainly, resonated with what was happening in America. So you could obviously see with the likes of the late Reverend Jesse Jackson, this was just not a fight for South Africa or for Black people in America, but for Black people in any corner where they faced suppression. And I heard quite a lot, you know, in that tribute in the United States to him, many people speaking about a hope that he carried, a special kind of hope which they're hoping there are others will be able to carry that baton now in light of what we see taking place in the world.
Absolutely. Remember, as Barack Obama was using that line you are saying of keeping the hope alive, but
Yes.
being the messengers of hope. I think when you go deeper into it, and as you were saying, Barack actually, when he closed, he was actually reminding us of the current geopolitics and geopolitics of the U.S. bullying, U.S. hegemony in the global south, and the issue of the voice, to say, where is the voice of the other? Are we being left out? But also look at Jesse passed away during the Black History Month in the U.S. on the 17th of February. He was a protege of Martin Luther King. He was a protege of Malcolm X. He was a protege of Marcus Garvey. Very important to link the struggles of the continent and the other continents, being the US or the African diaspora. And that's where when you are talking of keeping the hope alive, it was also the issue of economic trade. Remember, Jesse also was supporting what we call the US aid. But came Trump 1 and Trump 2.0. He started to now use trade as if we are beggars in Africa. I think Jesse was very clear when he was doing the Operation Basket, the Operation Push. You know, so those are the issues that when we think deeper in the analysis of the civil rights movement, they knew that the struggle was not all about enslavement or slavery. It was also the question of color. What people like W.E.B. Du Bois spoke about, that in the 21st century, the battle will be on the color line. And others, they go deeper to say, but this battle goes on the freedoms, goes to the human rights. And hence I was linking earlier that the civil rights movement was on the legacy that Jesse leaves of human dignity, of freedom, of also respect for human rights.
And also advocate, economic empowerment for Black communities. You spoke already about Operation Push and the Rainbow Coalition. I mean, how significant were these efforts in addressing systemic inequality and expanding opportunities, for historically marginalized communities? I think many can still argue that as Black people in South Africa and in the United States, we're not 100% there yet, economically.
Absolutely, we are on the same boat, and nothing new under the sun, nothing new under the moon. Even if Barack Obama came and left that stage, and remember when Barack said, Jesse, even when he was still not in his good state, he was still having more assignments to say, but we have not achieved freedom. Maybe freedom is still coming. Others are saying freedom has landed, Sister Griselda, and others are saying, but freedom has not come. And that's where we see the pockets of the racism of George Floyd that we saw in the US, the racism of President Trump, that he has been pushing the global traffic of tariffs by pushing the issue of economic wave to suppress the African continent and other continents and even global south. And when you look at, as you said, the Operation Basket was also to eliminate poverty, the hunger. And I think in the African continent, that's where we see the vitality of agricultural revolution, why we must stick to agricultural revolution, industrialization of the continent and of the African diaspora. Remember, Jesse also the AU, visited the AU when the African diaspora was allotted that position of being the sixth region of the African Union. So you can see that the plight of Africans, the plight of Black young people in the townships, in the ghettos, in the squalor has not changed. And probably those leaders who were yesterday in the US attending the memorial must be shaken, must be awakened that not yet Uhuru, we have not reached our freedom. It is important to learn from the likes of Jesse Jackson.
Always a pleasure speaking to you, Advocate. Thank you very much indeed for your time. That was advocate Sipho Mantula, a researcher at the Thabo Mbeki African School of Public and International Affairs, reflecting on the role of Rev Jesse Jackson in advancing civil rights and shaping, of course, struggles for justice across the African diaspora. Thank you very much, Advocate Sipho Mantula, for speaking to us here on SABC News.